What inspired my career was early on the international aspect when I was young and all the opportunities I had at that time. But later on I've really been driven by working for something that makes a difference. So I really feel that the companies I work for wants to help patients, and that's why I'm not selling vacuum cleaners or something else. I actually think doing marketing and engagement work in pharmaceuticals makes a big difference to a lot of people. So that's a driver for me. I think one hurdle to scale up is internal belief in the effectiveness or efficiency of digital marketing. So there's a high burden of proof on digital marketing. We need to prove that it works, which I actually think is fair enough. So you can say that's the first part, convincing, getting the confidence inside the companies to actually do it. I think most pharmaceutical companies are there now. They have the confidence. So now it's more about the how. How do we actually execute, and how do we, what capabilities do we need to execute, for example. I am a big proponent of doing small experiments before doing the big steps. So take a little concept, something, a hypothesis, test it small, build a small version of that project, and then test. If it works, scale up a bit more. If it doesn't, you can cut your losses and they won't be that big. But that whole learning and experimenting way of working is super important, also in scaling up. At LEO Pharma, we have been doing a growth hacking project, which is also related to experimentation. So we ran a project over a year's time where we tried to use social media, a website landing page, and an email to see if we could capture them online, capture GPs and drive them into our ecosystem. I think we have learned a lot from that. We learned how to do small experiments in each of the channels we used here. For example, we would test the landing page to see if people would prefer to have a short sign-up page to a long one, and obviously the short one was winning that experiment. We tested LinkedIn versus Facebook, which one is most efficient in driving the outcomes, and so on. So we also had a few failures, things that didn't work, that we then took into the learning book. But I think growth hacking as a concept, as a way of working, is really interesting because you use the data, you use experimentation, you use small experiments. So that is a recommendation to my colleagues. Well, my own personal leadership style is going between having an interesting vision for achieving something in the long term and driving towards the vision. But I'm also very motivated about doing something actionable on a short term to achieve that vision. So when I work as a leader, I really like to see, okay, let's agree on a vision, but let's really focus on now on what we need to do now. And have some successes, have some learnings, and so on. I also like, again, I mentioned experimentation, and that also involves failing. So I actually think we should celebrate failures because it's a way of showing that you have learned something. If we hide the failures, we don't achieve the full learning. So in my team, I like to nourish a culture where experimentation is in the center, and also an acceptance of failure sometimes. I've worked in Asia for the last few years, and I've learned a lot from the Asian culture, which is really completely opposite of the Danish culture. If you look at any cultural index, those two cultures are extremes of opposites. So what I've learned myself is to really follow the local culture, hold back a little bit on my own, acknowledge that I am the extreme one in the room and it's not them. It's actually what I do and what I think about their way of behaving that is the odd one. And if I go into the room with that in any situation, also in Denmark, then I think everything goes a little bit smoother, less conflict, and much more collaboration. But I also think the Danish culture have some interesting aspects with it is more direct. It feels more efficient to say this is the problem, whereas in other cultures you really try to avoid addressing the problem because somebody can lose face. So I haven't found the full recipe for this yet, but I think it's something I really think about every day.